Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We'll get the meeting started. Welcome to the April meeting of the Environmental Commission, and we'll begin with a roll call.
Commission Chair Kramer.
Present.
Commission Vice Chair O'Connor.
Here.
Commissioner Parker.
Here.
Commissioner Switzler.
Here.
Commissioner Bruner.
Here.
And Commissioner Wick.
Here.
Let the record show that we have a quorum with 6 commissioners present and Commissioner Fletcher absent.
Thank you. Okay, and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I can start tonight. And do we have any changes to the agenda tonight?
There are no changes to the agenda.
Great. And do we have any oral communications?
Yes, we have one speaker, Peggy Walker, regarding AB 762, banning disposable e-cigarettes.
Thanks. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Peggy Walker. I'm with San Diego Alliance for Drug-Free Youth, and we really admire the work you do. We especially appreciated what you did, what you have done with tobacco waste and the fight against the microplastics and cigarette butts. So I wanted to tell you about AB 762. I'm so excited about this bill. This bill, if you're not familiar with it, I know Mark is, would ban e-cigarettes, EA, because of the environmental hazard. They are more toxic, the plastic and the waste, the hazardous waste materials and chemicals, than cigarette butts. So this bill is on the legislative floor. Yesterday, it passed the, I've got to get this right, the Environmental Safety and Toxic Materials Committee approved it, and now it's gone to the Assembly Business and Professions Committee. And this is so exciting because for a bill like this to move is just wonderful for the health and the environmental implications. But I wanted to let you know that it has moved from one committee to the next. This handout I gave you explains all about it. And I wanted to let you know that there's a website up at the top. And if you go to that website, you can go down to the bottom and you can send an email in support of this bill. It would be so good for California. We had such an issue with cigarette butts. Now we've got an issue with disposable e-cigs. And according to CalPERG, who supports this, people throw away about 4.5 e-cigs every second. And one of the problems is people don't know what to do with them. They did a survey with kids, and kids throw them in the trash, or they throw them here, or they throw them on the sidewalk. There hasn't been clear direction on how to dispose of them. And they are a hazardous waste that's presenting problems for schools and for cities. So I suspect you're already aware of it. If not, I hope you will be, and I hope you'll support it. You could even send a letter if you choose from this commission, or ask the city to do so, send one in support from the city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for that information. Do we have any other oral communications?
No other oral communications.
Okay, thanks. Okay, next we have our presenter. We have Joe DeWolf, San Diego Botanic Gardens Habitat Restoration Program Manager. And he's going to tell us about the native pollinator garden at Parkdale Lane Elementary School. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for asking me to be here. I understand the city has some pollinator aspirations. We are a bee city now, or we're becoming one, right? So that's great. We have a new project from a new donor, private donor that we had that we're doing some pollinator enhancement at the garden and around town as well. Some of the projects are actually on City of Encinitas property as well, kind of in conjunction with the Botanic Gardens' current contract and relationship with the city in their open spaces. So this is an exciting project. Lots to talk about. This is a very photo-heavy presentation, by the way. If you have any questions, let me know at the end. Okay, so this that worked earlier. Here? Oh, I don't know where I need to point it though. There we go. Okay, so this, actually, let me skip ahead a little bit to the project overview. So this, I'll start at the end here. This project came about from a generous private donor that approached us and just wanted to help pollinators. We all know there's a lot of all sorts of different wildlife that are kind of in trouble lately, and especially pollinators, and she was very passionate about it. So she donated some money, and what we proposed to do is we kind of had three separate goals of this project that we proposed. One of them was to enhance a lot of the pollinator habitat and gardens at the Botanic Garden. A second one was to enhance some pollinator habitat at a City of Encinitas property. The one we chose was the Moonlight Beach parcel. And then the third was kind of a dream project of mine at Parkdale Lane Elementary School. My son right here goes to Parkdale, and there is a slope that I've been walking past for the last 6 years. I'll go back here, that is full of ice plant, and I keep telling myself every day I pick them up and I'm like, I got to do something about this ice plant here. And finally, I kept it in the back of my mind, and we had this donor that came, and so it all worked out. We already had a relationship with the Encinitas School District doing some restoration at Ocean Hill Elementary School. So I already knew the facility staff, and he trusted our work, so he went ahead and approved it. So that's what we proposed to do, and we got started this last November. So we'll go back here. So the goal, as I mentioned, is to remove the non-native ice plant, Carpobrotus edulis, to install a wide variety of native species. Obviously, this is a purely native garden that we're going for, providing a variety of larval host plants and a year-round source of flowers, nectar, and pollen, and then, of course, eventually install some sort of interpretive signage to kind of help explain what we're doing and educate the public on pollinators and their habitats. Okay, let me go back. Alrighty, so step one, remove ice plant. So we have a lot of amazing volunteers at the Botanic Garden. We're out at various open spaces every Wednesday morning with our volunteers doing habitat restoration. So we did this in, I think it was the week of Thanksgiving. We got started by removing the ice plant. It's a lot of work. We had to haul it all off-site back to the garden and throw it in our green waste. Step two is kind of at the same time, we also, not only is there ice plant, let me go back here, there's also a lot of duff that builds up below the ice plant, because that ice plant has probably been there since, I would imagine, the beginning of the school, right? So it had decades and decades of duff below it. So we did have to scrape a lot of the duff beneath the ice plant after we removed it, and then we gave it a fresh coating of mulch. So that's what it looked like after the removal of the ice plant and after we mulched it. We didn't have enough capacity to do the whole thing, and the school didn't want us to do the whole thing, but this was kind of a trial project for us. And I'll go back and say the thing about ice plant, we don't like it, obviously, but I understand why schools and Caltrans historically would use it a lot, because it's very low maintenance. You don't have to do any sort of weeding, and the school district has, 7 different elementary schools, and this slope is kind of their least concern for maintenance. So they don't have any sort of capacity to do this type of work. So that's where we come in, the nonprofits, and we do this sort of work. So this was kind of the trial, doing just a little section of pollinator garden in between the ice plant. And in a way, I kept thinking of it as like this was also like my artistic statement, because it's totally surrounded by ice plants, so you can see directly on either side the lack of habitat, zero habitat value, amazing habitat value, zero habitat value on the other side, and it's somewhat of a statement, I guess, as well. So I always kind of looked at it that way. Okay, so after I hope this plays, we removed the ice plant and installed the mulch. We installed some landscape boulders because, fortunately, with this generous donor, we had more than enough funding to do it right, to go big, make it look absolutely awesome. We weren't going to half this job, right? So let me go back. This was a video. If it doesn't work, is that going to allow you to play? It's just the crane. Oh, it probably goes to the Google Drive. Don't worry about it. You can go back then. Sorry about that. I guess I should have embedded it. Okay, so it's a crane, installing the boulders. So the boulders look nice, and that's what it looked like after the boulders. So of course, after that, it's planting time. So these are some of our staff and volunteers doing the planting. And that's what it looked like after the planting. This was, again, I think we did all of this just within a couple weeks in November, early December. So I want to go over the plant list here and talk about all the different species we chose. And we chose these for a variety of reasons. So again, this is a pollinator garden, so we want a nice mix of different host plants, lots of different nectar and pollen plants, but also we chose a lot of these because we want something to always be blooming, right, in the garden, so that it's kind of a year-round source of pollinators. So I'll go through just a few of these. There's even a second page as well. So we've got a lot of our beautiful sages, buckwheats, amazing pollinator plants. They're not just host plants for a lot of the blue butterflies and the skylark butterflies, hair streaks, things like that, but also they're really long bloomers, and they kind of take up that like summer bloomer. So, right now is kind of peak bloom for a lot of the wildflowers and a lot of our shrubs. But also, and so there's no shortage of flowers and nectar and pollen in the springtime. But in the summertime, buckwheats are really carrying the load. So we got a couple different species of buckwheats there, the coast buckwheat, the California buckwheat, and Eriogonum grande rubescens, which I believe is a Channel Island species, really beautiful plant. Ceanothus, which are the winter bloomers. Fremontodendrons, beautiful sea dahlias. A lot of these are, again, just perfect nectar plants for like butterflies. You want that big flat bloom. That's like a nice landing pad for all the butterflies. So the seaside daisies are great. There's a Shaw's agave there. Got to give a shout out to the bats. Bats are also pollinators, and the agaves are one of their main sources of food around here. Threw in some ocotillos in there. I had a little fun too. Not exactly, not like it's not fun already, right? But not like it's a hyper local, but have a little representation from some of our desert plants. And then in the fall, so we've got the winter, spring, summer, and then in the fall, we've got California fuchsia, golden bush are some of the fall bloomers as well. So again, ideally, you always have something blooming. Manzanitas, if you have a native plant garden, you got to have manzanita. I think it's sacrilege if you don't. And then the next list is some of the wildflowers. So this was fun. So the wildflowers look great right now. There's a lot of different ways you can establish wildflowers. You can just toss seeds out, but that's kind of a crapshoot because it's very dependent on rain, and a lot of that stuff isn't really in your control. So what we actually did is we have some amazing volunteers, and we grew a lot of different wildflowers in like little 4-inch pots. And so we ended up just planting a bunch of wildflowers in the site. Very, very tiny little wildflowers. There's some lupins, some desert wildflowers, and a lot of them looked like just like this when we planted them. So But they really, really took off. This is what it looks like. I think I just took these photos on Monday morning, so there's just a huge variety of flowers right now. It really looks incredible. So this is where it gets very photo heavy. Let me know if you have any questions. We've got our lupins, poppies. On the bottom left is a beach sun cup, and I think that's like a really underutilized plant that it's actually native to our dunes, native to Encinitas, Cardiff, all over our coastal dunes, and I don't know why you don't see it more often in landscapes because it's a beautiful plant. Astragalus, someone say that?
Yeah, what was the
Who said that?
other purple one before the lupin? That
That one?
before that? Oh, what were those?
That's the Origeron,
Okay.
seaside daisy.
Okay, thanks.
Another amazing host plant, the Astragalus. There's the Camisoniopsis, the beach sun cup I mentioned earlier. Here's some of our Phacelias. And again, most of those are all just the little babies we planted, the little wildflower, little 2-inch pots that we planted. And then this is one of our common shrubs that you see all over the hillside, monkey flower. It's got that red tubular flower for the hummingbirds. And just more amazing wildflowers. So pretty happy with how it turned out, as you could imagine. Here's the California fuchsia, one of the fall bloomers that I mentioned earlier. Okay, so all right, this is where it gets interesting because we talked about, we're providing pollinator habitat, right? But this site is, on one side, you've just got like turf in the school. And then on the other side, on either side, you have ice plant, and then you have a road surrounded by just suburbia full of palm trees and more turf and all the other stuff, right? So you wondered what this would attract because it's not near not that near these to these nice habitat sources, right? It's not near any open spaces or anything like that. So I kind of thought maybe this Parkdale Lane site would be more of an educational interpretive garden where, it serves that purpose and, it attracts what it attracts. There's not much you can do about what's surrounded by it, right? But we are seeing some of our native pollinators. So here's a little sweat bee here. And again, we've seen a lot more, but they're not always cooperative. So here's a yellow-faced bumblebee, another one of our native bumblebees. I've seen a lot of hummingbirds there as well. So, and again, just finally, before and after. So very, very happy with how it turned out. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Awesome. Thank you. What a beautiful garden. What an awesome contribution to the neighborhood. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a couple. I was going to say, does your funding is it enough to allow you to keep moving down that bank, or are you going to have to re-push for more donors to finish that whole?
I think we're looking for more donors. It seems like people are happy with it, so we'd like to continue.
Yeah, it's
You
beautiful.
know anybody? Let me know.
You can ask those viewers at home viewing this now.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah, Joe, there was, it's gorgeous, by the way, super cool. You meant ice plant is very low maintenance. Is there even if you bring donor funding, is there still hesitancy from these folks that are like, well, now I got to maintain this hillside, or what, is that a challenge? What's the deal?
Yeah, that's a good question. So to get the approval from the school to do this, we committed to maintaining it. So I gave them my word, we'll be here for at least a few years because it's a big step for them. We don't want to give them any more work. They're already way understaffed for what they have to do, right? So, yeah, I mean, if it's successful and we get more donors, we'd love to expand it and continue for many years.
Being native plants, is a lot of maintenance required to keep it, or is it going to just do its thing and they'll fight for space? And
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Eventually, it'll do its thing. You know, once we get enough native coverage and get enough of these wildflowers to reseed and get a nice seed bank going, it should be, for the most part, self-sustaining. There's always going to be maintenance. There's always going to be weeds to some extent coming in, but yeah, ideally, you know, yeah, exactly. You do more work and you stay on top of the weeds, and it should be pretty low maintenance. You know, native habitats and landscapes aren't the type where you got to constantly hedge and prune and mow and all that stuff. You know, that is one of the benefits of natives.
Just a quick confirmation, so it's all native, so no irrigation needed, no watering?
Oh, thank you for bringing that up. So I didn't bring up like kind of the maintenance aspect. So we water once a week, and we hand water. So when we plant, we do it right. We make a nice little berm around it, nice basin. So we've been hand watering once a week. Eventually, they get established, and they'll kind of be on their own. There's a couple heads on top of the slope that the school has that has been like watering the ice plant. I don't think they work very well, and I haven't really been counting on it. So, yeah.
I had one last thing. I like to connect people. There's a grassroots effort going on to start a pollinator plate, like the whale tail plate for California license plates. That's Jay Klopfenstein. Do you know Jay, that name? He's a North County kind of guru for pollination. I would love to link you two together.
Yeah.
Just start an email. Do we have Joe's? Okay.
Happy
and
to.
then the other one, this year's Youth Award for the Environmental Commission is Jay Burke, and his whole write-up was on pollination and pollinators. I think he's SDA, so again, just another link for a young person who's into doing that. I'll connect you guys.
Yeah, please do.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, Joe, I just want to say thank you so much for presenting it. I think this is a great example of helping Encinitas become a better bee city and showing what people can do to their own. Because I know that when, you know, as a parent going to Parkdale Lane, you see that every day. And so I think you're reaching a lot of people by placing it there. So I think that's a great job.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we've had a couple HOAs approach us when we're out there too.
Oh, really? Cool.
You know, so spreading the good word of native plants, and maybe we can start, you know, making a difference in Village Park, and because there's not a lot of natives there at the moment. So
Yeah.
And show our landscape architects what it looks like when it's beautiful like that. Get into homes.
Yeah, I had a question about, you know, we're thinking about the native plant policy in the Environmental Commission and kind of one issue is ways to better align the fire abatement policies within the city, the weed abatement policies mainly, with the native plant policy. And in some instances when there's kind of semi-native habitat, like a lot of abandoned fields, there'll be some native plants and some non-native plants, and a property owner will get a notice that they're in violation and they'll just clear everything, killing native plants as well. I've just kind of seen that happen a lot. And I guess one first question is, will some of these plants die back, and could it pose like a problem for weed abatement? And, or do you have any thoughts on kind of like how the city could maybe better align those two things?
And would it fit into a fire break between areas?
Because
or is it
the reason there's a lot
susceptible?
of ice plant, another reason is that it doesn't die, and so it's never in violation.
Yeah.
Even though it's non-native, it's kind of the worst case scenario, I think, from a pollinator perspective or native habitat perspective. It's left alone because it's never in violation. So
yeah.
yeah.
Good questions. You know, all the wildflowers do die. That's what they do. They're annuals. From what I understand, it's all about like hydration and fire breaks. If there's irrigation available, that's ideal, but that's not always the case, obviously, in some of these big fields. So, I don't think I can answer that right now. It's a big issue, and these big spaces, that's a big commitment. If you want to restore something, you really got to go all the way. You can't half it.
Joe, I did a restoration with you in Cottonwood Creek not too long ago, and I think there's another one coming up in the next couple weeks, maybe the
Yeah.
19th, if
Saturday the
anyone
19th.
wants to go.
Yep.
How dependent are you on volunteers, and like how can we be more involved, or where do we sign up for what you're doing or anything like that?
Yeah, we would love more volunteers. Check the website, San Diego Botanic Garden website. There should be a link up there. The way we do it is you have to sign up and then go through a little bit of an orientation. It's a pretty easy process. But then once you're orientated, you're good to go. You can volunteer at the garden. You can volunteer offsite. We volunteer every Wednesday morning, always looking for more volunteers. We bounce around different sites around Encinitas, so thanks for bringing that up. And then occasional Saturdays as well.
And I'll plug that other organization is Surfrider at their beach cleanups, and we have a climate change committee that's about big on this stuff. So a lot of that people from that committee are doing this work.
Yeah, that's what this one is coming up.
Yes, I just wanted to make that little plug.
All right.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
so much. Yeah, thank you for your work. Okay, so now we have the approval of the March meeting minutes. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve?
I will make a motion to approve the March 13th meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay. And then now we have an informational item. We have a public beach counter update by Anushka Iyer, Coastal Sustainability Aid for the City. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Good evening. My name is Anushka Iyer, and I am the current Coastal and Sustainability Aide for the Developmental Services here at the city. Today, I'll be going over the updates for the Encinitas Beach Counter Program. I'll go over the background on what the program is, improvements we've made to the program, along with some data we've captured from 2024 for annual reporting, along with some benefits of the program as well. Okay, so to provide some background for this program, prior to 2001, the city had lifeguards manually counting beach visitors. So they would take attendance at 4 beaches yearly, twice daily. Of course, manual counting is very time-consuming and oftentimes not the most accurate. So since 2001, the city has moved away from manual counting and then switched to an automated counter system. In terms of beach management, the city manages 6 beaches. That's Grandview, Beacons, Stone Steps, Moonlight, D Street, and Swamis. And the California State Parks Department manages beach access points south of Swamis, including the Pipes Ramp, San Elijo Campground, Cardiff Reef Parking Lot, the Cardiff State Beach Living Shoreline, and the South Cardiff State Beach. So on this map here, you can see there's a yellow patch, a red patch, and a green patch. The yellow patch and the red patch are all of the city-managed beach territory. So we have the red patches like our downtown, the yellow is Leucadia, and then everything from the bottom of this area, so the green patch essentially is all of the state-managed beaches. So you have got Cardiff and everything south of Swamis essentially. Okay, and then moving on to the active sites. There are currently 8 active counter sites that we have. It's Grandview, Beacons, Stone Steps, and then there's 3 sites at Moonlight. That's the Moonlight pedestrian ramp, the Moonlight emergency ramp, and then the Moonlight roundabout. And then there's D Street, Swamis, and Pipes Ramp. So this map over here kind of shows you where each of those are. They're listed in order of from northmost to southmost. And then the number 4 here is indicative of D Street and then the 3 Moonlight sites. Okay, so let's get into the program itself and the materials we use. So Here are some pictures of the models we've gone through. On the top is our old model. This model is pretty outdated, so we've moved forward to a new model because some of the drawbacks in this model, the old one, included it being bigger. So if you've gone to Swami's and you've maybe peeked over the rail, you might have seen this giant circle in there. It's kind of big, which was one of the reasons why it takes more time to install. It's a little bit harder to keep up with. And because it's not necessarily battery run, it requires a power source, which also adds to the maintenance. Therefore, we moved to the new model, which is this one. This one I would imagine some people have seen more often. It's a lot smaller, it's lighter, and it's easier to maintain because it just takes batteries, and the batteries have a 10-year lifespan. So it's just a great improvement. It's technologically more sophisticated, and another great option that comes with this new model is an automatic data transmission feature through EcoVisio, which is a software I'll go more into detail with later on. But it basically just allows the data to come to us directly without us having to go out and manually retrieve it, which is amazing. And then going forward, the program utilizes sensors from EcoCounter, which is our who we contract with for these models, and uses passive infrared sensors to detect body temperature. And the data, like I said a little earlier, is manually retrieved and sent to EcoVisio via cloud-based software. So here on the bottom left, you'll see this is a picture of the newer sensor. It's the Pyro sensor. This picture is taken at D Street. If you walk down the staircase and you try to give yourself a mental scavenger hunt and look into the rails, you could probably find it. And this one over here on the right is the older model. This is the Eco Combo 2 model. You actually won't see this one out in daylight because this one is buried. But the sensor, which is attached to this external pole, is what captures the people moving to and from. And then moving into the site locations, the upper left corner here is our beacon site. It has the new Pyro sensor. The upper right has our Grandview sensor. It's also the new Pyro. In the bottom, we have the pipes ramp. This one is located inside the box, so you won't be seeing that one either. The lower right contains the Swami's one. This is the one I mentioned. If you look over the rails, you'll see that one. We have the D Street site. This one also has the new Pyro sensor. The upper right is the Stone Steps access point. That has a new sensor as well. And then we have our 3 Moonlight sites. So here is the pedestrian ramp one. This was just recently installed. So this is also one of the new Pyro sensor boxes, which is great. Here's the roundabout. It's our second site at Moonlight. It's buried underground, so you also won't be seeing that, but this is the sensor. And then there's the emergency ramp, also buried underground at Moonlight, and then the external pole with the sensor. Okay, so Moonlight is a little unique, namely because it's the biggest beach and there are so many access points to it. Obviously, we can't really put a counter at every single one because there's so many ways to get in the beach. So what we've done is we've taken a formula made by Philip King, PhD, in his pedestrian count technical study. And he came up with a 3.6 multiplier to basically account for all of those access points that we're basically missing by not having a counter there. And then to move forward and show you guys what this distribution looks like, these are some distribution charts made on the EcoVisio software itself. That's the software we use that collects the data and analyzes it, which gives us these visualizations. These two show the same data. They're just appearing in different formats. They're reorganized. But you can see clearly that the orange is Moonlight factor total. That's the largest chunk of the pie, basically, and it makes sense because it's our largest beach. And then you can see the other following numbers, like Grandview comes in second, D Street comes in third, and so forth. And yeah, it's just a really good way to showcase the big overarching picture of how many people are attending which specific beaches. Another thing that EcoVisio does is it gives us key figure summaries. So it'll tell us the total number of visitors. So last year in 2024, since this is all 2024 data, we had over 3 million visitors. And then our daily average per day was 8,326 visitors. And then what's nice is you can go into more specific profiles as well. So if you wanted to know what the peak day of 2024 was, it'll tell you June 15th with 24,117 visitors. Same with the peak week, that's week 32, the week of August 5th, 113,625. And if you wanted to know the peak month, it was July with 446,568 visitors. And I included this, this graph that showcases the monthly traffic just because I think it does a really good job of giving you an idea of the overarching trend of people coming in and out. And it makes sense that our summer months are the ones with the highest numbers. And so to conclude, the importance of this project is it just allows us to make informed long-term decisions based on data analysis and interpretation. This is really helpful for tracking like tourism patterns, like I've listed down here. It also helps us forecast sales tax and TOT taxes. Importantly, these are numbers that we are required to submit to the state parks every year because we're leasing their beaches. So they would like to know what numbers and how many people are coming into their beaches. It's also important for determining what future investments we should make in resource management and operational facilities. A really big part of this is justifying our sand nourishment projects. Having this kind of data really showcases how many people are coming and why it's important that we maintain and keep our beaches really nice and clean and just give it the best we can for people who are coming to visit. And so, yeah, there's a lot of really important things that come out of this program, and thanks for listening.
Great presentation. Thank
Thanks.
you. Very, very interesting too. Any questions, comments?
Nope, well done.
I know you probably can't tell through these monitors at all, but are you looking at out-of-town visitors through another way of monitoring?
That's a really good question. So the way the sensors work and like our whole program, it's not really restrictive to any particular visitor. It's really just generally people coming in and out. I would assume that the summer months probably tracks more out-of-state or like non-local visitors, but yeah, it's pretty general overall, but yeah.
I was just wondering if you had any other ways to monitor people from out of town, possibly.
Hotel occupancy maybe, or
Not-
videos?
Yeah, not through this specific program. We were looking at potentially there is something through like a JS base where it does track cellular and how that works. That's pretty much what you're saying, where you could see in theory where someone's coming, and you draw a polygon and you can see that they entered the beach area. But we haven't gone down that route. But a lot of cities do use that type of program. We haven't seen as accurate. We were kind of modeling one kind of at Moonlight, but this is accurate counts of physical bodies passing by. So we saw a little bit of discrepancy in the numbers.
I had a question. Is this mandated by the state or county, and who's paying for this?
So because we basically lease the beach space through a MOU, the state's required to kind of report on the income levels of what these sites generate. So like the concession numbers, how much the city basically generates revenue-wise on the beaches. So we send a letter essentially with this data, along with all of that data related to programs to the state parks to basically understand how these sites specifically are being used. So, and who pays for it? I mean, in theory, it comes out of the coastal management budget as far as this program. Yeah.
So the city has to cover the cost.
Of the counter program, correct. I mean, the letter, essentially, we're just kind of giving them the facts of, the results of the year end. And so this reporting effort shows us what we're seeing, at least at the city managed beaches, and reporting that back to the state.
Okay. And have you guys looked at any long-term trends? Are you seeing like a big uptick like in the past few years, or any interesting trends you're seeing?
It's kind of been a little all over the place, but generally we see, with more nourished beaches, right, we see more activity. So that's a positive trend. Obviously, there's, we can't run our rec programs and things like that if we don't have beach space wide enough to do junior lifeguards or the various day camps and things that you see down at Moonlight. So all of that kind of plays into effect. I think the main day that you cited there was 24,711, which was the surf event with Switchfoot, the Bro-Am, right? So that one day, triggers 24,000 visitors into that area. So yeah, it's interesting data, but yeah, that's why we track it. But and we're kind of fine-tuning it as we go. As you kind of indicated, we're phasing out some of those older counters and bringing in some of the newer counters. So,
Can I ask one question that is not on counting, but it's while you're here, just to ask how the sand is hanging in there?
it's doing really well. So through our CoSnap program, which is another program that we monitor, we've been tracking. You can see from the photographs, the sand itself has been staying. We finalized the placement, which was the beginning of May last year. Some of that sand was migrating north towards Beacons. You probably saw that the Beacons area started filling in. Didn't get it quite back to the toe of the bluff. There's about 5 foot of a gap there. And then it also migrated south. So it's basically kind of gone around Swami's Point, which didn't really have any sand there before the project. It's essentially kind of rebuilt that whole area without physically having to deliver sand there. And it's gone all the way down towards Pipes, towards the campground. So that whole area is now a beautiful stretch of beach. If you haven't walked it, I would highly suggest that you do. So that's kind of how the sand within the intertidal area has kind of shifted, and obviously we're continuing to monitor it. And we're also kind of looking at the next phase, which is phase 2 of the project. So we're going to start doing the pre-planning, engineering, design of that phase this next kind of fiscal year. So fiscal year 26, 27, to look at a 2029 placement of the second phase of that Army Corps project. Yeah.
Thank you. I wanted to ask that too. I'm glad you did. I was curious. Yeah, I live near Swami's, and it's really nice still. It's kind of come and gone a tiny bit, but yeah, for the most part, it's stuck around.
Yeah, and you'll see more of it coming back towards the summer. So it'll start getting I ran into JP at Beacons this afternoon before the meeting. He was there, and I was checking something out. But you can start seeing the sand coming back in. So
Nice.
probably around end of May, June, you'll start seeing more sand coming in towards those beaches.
Why does it do that? Or maybe it's obvious to other people?
It's just kind of the way the sand cycle tends to work, but it's usually the wave action, but the southerly swells. So like this weekend, we're getting a southwest swell, so we'll start seeing more of it. It's the way it kind of works. Summer, it tends to kind of bring the sand north back in for the south swells. So the sand that's kind of not, let's say, at Beacons area north, you'll start seeing it kind of come back. It's harder to tell where the berm is because there's sand there, but you'll start seeing a longer, wider shelf in those areas. So,
if there's still, a lot of sand in the next couple of years, will the plan change for the next phase?
As far as the amount,
Yeah.
so the next nourishment amount is less than the original, so it's 220,000 cubic yards, whereas the original was 340,000. So it's less, but the idea is consistency, right? And then we have another long-range project, which is through SANDAG, which is the Regional Beach Sand Project 3. So that one we're in the economic feasibility study right now, and that will be more of the kind of pad arrangement. So one pad will be up near the Bataquitos, kind of South Ponto area, behind the La Maria Hotel, and then there'll be one at Beacons, kind of fit into the Beacons area and north. And then in theory, there could be one at Moonlight, just kind of depends on the time that we actually deliver sand, and then Cardiff as well.
Can I further change the subject? I just had one last thing since you're here. With the domoic acid, the harmful algae bloom happening right now and the domoic acid poisoning, we're seeing strandings of seals and sea lions every day pretty much. Every time I've gone down to the beach, I've seen a seal stranded. Does the city have any kind of purview over signage or anything? Because I know it can be harmful to pets, to dogs. I had a neighbor whose dog was chewing on kelp on the beach, and that could poison them, and she had no idea. And people were just really wondering about what was going on with the stranded seal, but there's no signage. There's really no information down at the beach.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, the thing is, it's kind of the catch-22, right? Where no dogs allowed on the beach on city beaches, right? And then state beaches, the signage is kind of few and far between. So I've been working with state parks to try to at least get signage where you need to keep your dog on a leash, right? You don't really see that now, especially around the living shoreline where we have western snowy plovers and things like that are there. Recently, we had a burrowing owl that was on the living shoreline. It did finally leave, but it was there for about 6 weeks or so. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a...
It's for people too, if people eat shellfish. I know they're not supposed to be collecting, the Swimmers Marine Park, but I was just wondering, after that interaction, I was like, people have no idea.
Yeah,
really
that's a good point. Yeah, we could look at that.
Thanks. Okay, thank you so much, both of you, and great presentation, Anisha. Okay, now we are moving on to the April update on the progress of our work plan. Thanks, Crystal.
All right, good evening. So I'll be presenting the work plan update as usual. So we'll go to the spreadsheet. Okay, so this is the item where we go over your 2-year work plan and the progress that you made over the past month. So I will go over all the projects in which there was activity in the past month. So for project number 1, which is your commission outreach and representation, I wanted to share a couple of upcoming events. So Cyclovia will be on Sunday, May 18th from 10 to 2 along Coast Highway from D Street to I Street. And then EcoFest is happening on June 1st, and that's at Encinitas Community Park. You're more than welcome to come and help out at the sustainability team. Will have a booth at both of these events, and you're more than welcome to come and help out. So if you want to just give me a heads up beforehand so we know you're coming and we can put you to work. And then for project number 2, that's the Environmental Awards Program. And
I just want to say that
sure.
Arbor Day was a really good success. I thought the Parks and Rec people did a fantastic job. Nicole White did a really good job of putting it on. And we planted 50 trees. And I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the sustainability person that was there.
Oh, Aoife. Her name's Aoife.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
But we planted 50 trees, and it went pretty well. It was a very good event.
Great. Yeah, thank you for adding that. And at that event, I'll just mention that for the sustainability table, we focused on our Bee City designation and promoting pollinators. And so we had these little bee houses, native bee houses that people could come up and make and paint to take home for their gardens.
I went and brought back a bunch of seeds and fertilizers and all sorts of cool stuff that the tables were giving away.
Did Edco end up having the mulch available? Or,
Yeah, there was a huge pile of mulch in the parking lot that people could bring their own trash cans and fill up and take them home. So
Nice.
Okay, anything else before I move on? Okay. Project number 3 is the native plant policy.
Were you going to do 2?
Oh, sorry, I skipped 2. Sorry about that.
Right.
Project 2 is the Environmental Awards Program, and the awards have been selected, and they'll be presented to the winners on April 23rd at the City Council meeting.
And then I think in an email, this was an appropriate place for me to say I'm stepping down off of that committee. There's an opening for anyone who'd like. I've been doing it for 3 years. So if anybody who'd like, it's fun, rewarding, the faces at those meetings when they get their awards. It's pretty cool. So there'll be an opening in the Environmental Awards Program for a commissioner.
Okay. And then for project number 3 is the native plant policy, and the consultant and the city hosted the first public workshop on the draft ordinance on March 24th from 6 to 8 at City Hall. And at that workshop, the goals for the work effort were discussed and feedback was received on the draft outline of the ordinance, which included the compiled existing native plant data resources. And then just a reminder, if you want to learn more about it, follow the native plant ordinance webpage on the city's website for more updates.
And then now that I have all this free time, I see there's only 2 commissioners in that block. I'd put my name in there if nobody else wants to join native plants.
Okay.
All in favor, yeah.
You guys can specify as part of the vote if you want to.
Yeah, we can put a motion to that at the end, but
All right.
I would support that.
Okay. And then
Crystal, can I ask you real quick for an
Sure.
update on, on that weed abatement issue? I know he had talked with the fire marshal about maybe changing the language on the violation notice. And I don't know if you had gotten any updates on that.
I have not. I did check in with him a while back and asked him to respond, and he said he was working on a response. So I'll ask him again and
thanks.
see if he can get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So for project number 4, that's the mobility element update. And the update here is that consideration of the draft mobility element is expected to be agendized at a city council meeting in May. And the reason being is staff wanted to make sure that all 5 council members are present when that item is discussed. I don't know if you know, but Joy Lyons has been on leave for a little bit, but she's expected to come back in a few weeks, and by May. And then the item will be informational at that point because it's a new council to gather their direction on the element. And then for project number 5, this is the 5-year climate action plan update. And with this, the draft cap was published and is available for public comment beginning March 11th. And comments can be provided to climateaction@encinitasca.gov. And a public workshop was held to receive input on just this past Tuesday on April 8th at City Hall in the Poinsettia Room from 5:30 to 7:30. And City Council was tentatively scheduled to hear the item on April 23rd. However, there has been a bit of a change in direction since this item was posted. So it seems like there is an interest to get a little more in depth with the cost analysis for the document. So we are going to recommend to council that a cost benefit analysis be conducted by the consultant but prior to adoption of the cap, and this will enable council to fully understand the complete costs and the benefits of all of the measures, so they get the full picture of what those are before they approve the document. Yeah, so a little bit more work to be done. That we expect that'll take at least 3 to 4 months to get done. It's a pretty involved process that they look at all of the costs to implement the measures and then also the costs to the community as well. And same thing with the benefits. They look at the direct benefits to the city, they look at the emissions reduction benefits, and they also look at co-benefits as well to try to capture everything.
Crystal, how does that land? Like, was that the workshop and a group of people vote to have that done? Like, I'm just
The
curious.
cost benefit analysis?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
gets-
it was a discussion between me and the city manager and at a couple of the council briefings. So there's been an interest to do a cost benefit analysis. We were considering doing it after the draft was adopted. However, it would be beneficial to do it beforehand so they're more informed when they adopt the cap and know what the full cost of the implementation will be before they commit to the measures. So, excuse me. So it's not official yet, but this is the direction that staff is going to recommend to council that they approve. We'll have to amend the contract with the consultant who's doing the work to add this task to their scope of work. So staff will be preparing an item to go to City Council for consideration to do just that. And if council votes on it and supports it, then that will be the direction that we proceed.
Would the idea be to use the results of that cost-benefit analysis to kind of prioritize different actions, and it sounds like maybe drop some of them if their cost-benefit ratio is not favorable?
Yeah, I would say it's more the first part of what you said
Okay.
is to prioritize. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that any of them are dropped per
Okay.
se, but it
Okay.
could prioritize which ones get implemented first. If we
Got it.
wanted to do the most effective ones first, the ones that have that greatest cost benefit ratio, and then you could focus on those. That could be the council's way of prioritizing which ones get implemented first.
Okay, thank you.
So on the 23rd, when you go to council, you won't be presenting the measures, you'll just be asking to do the cost benefit
Yeah,
analysis?
so we
Okay.
likely won't go on the 23rd at all. We still need to work through a proposed revised scope and budget for the cost benefit analysis,
okay.
so that's going to take a bit of time. But we'll probably early May is when we'll go to council with the recommended amendment to the contract.
Okay.
And then soon after that, we'll get started on the work. And then we won't actually take the draft cap to council for some time till after we develop that cost benefit analysis.
Okay.
So early May is just to ask for the money to
Yeah,
do the cost benefit.
Correct. Yep. Mhm. Any other questions? I know this one was a lot, a big change. Again, not official yet, but this is the recommendation that staff is going to make. So I'll jump to the next item, and that would be item 10, which is the food service plastic ordinance. So as you know from last month, the survey results from the businesses were presented by the subcommittee during the March Environmental Commission meeting. And the commission recommended forwarding the item to council for consideration. And I've talked with the subcommittee, and we're going to try to shoot for June to get it on the council agenda. And so I will work with the city manager and the mayor to confirm a date, and then we can prepare an agenda item to present that to council and get their direction on whether or not they want staff to develop a draft ordinance to amend the code.
We just have an update that Commissioner O'Connor and I are going to meet with some of our incoming city council members to kind of discuss with them. And we have a meeting scheduled for end of April, beginning of May. I can't remember right now, but we can report back on that. End of April. Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
And then item 11, which is our Bee City USA affiliation. So the annual report is almost done. I just reviewed a draft of it. It's looking really great. So we'll be submitting that very shortly and then renewing our membership. And then, as I mentioned earlier, at Arbor Day, we did focus on our Bee City outreach and promoting pollinators. So we'll continue to do that occasionally throughout the year.
And as I mentioned earlier during the presentation, the grassroots effort to get a pollinator plate are people in my circle and sphere and asking me if I would be put onto the Bee City USA subcommittee. Again, I know I got off of it a year ago or so, but I see there's an opening, and if the motion is made to put me on there, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. And then I think there's a speaker on this item. Commissioner Kramer.
Sorry
Chair
about
Kramer.
that. Yes. Okay. Is that an informational item? I'm not sure. Or
Yeah,
says
there's an official. Go ahead, Maria.
He wants, Parker Cohn wants
yeah.
to speak on the CAP update.
Oh, great. Okay. Thank you. Oral communication. Sorry, got that term wrong. Thanks.
Thank you, Crystal. So it seems like this is kind of opportune timing because the budget for the CAP plan has been pushed a little bit. So I want to thank Crystal for putting this meeting on my radar, as well as Luke, Mayor Ehlers, Dave Knopp, and David Norgard have all encouraged me to, introduce myself to the Environmental Commission and kind of give you an outline of what I have identified as a missing component of the current CAP plan that is pretty substantial. So is there a way we could put my...
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Should we pause the counter? So
I prepared to have two sponsored, but I can cruise if it's important to stay. In 3 minutes, I can cruise really quickly. Either way, just kind of... We'll keep it quick. And then we'll keep it quick, and maybe if there's a format for like a larger presentation or something later we can discuss. Okay, so the reason I'm here is to focus on the crucial action item, which is adding soil regeneration to the climate action plan. So incorporating soil regeneration into the climate action plan is extremely important. Soil regeneration aids in reducing greenhouse gas emissions by offsetting fertilizers, chemicals, water, energy, and actively cycling and storing carbon. So kind of everything in the capacity, we're looking for all the solutions, and there's a tremendous solution right under our feet, which is the soil. So the soil is our most underutilized asset. I'm going to skip the bullet points here because I just mentioned them. So here's an example of, this isn't. Crystal, are you driving?
Yeah.
Okay, could we do slide 3? Can you see my screen? Cool. I'm going to cruise fairly quickly in respect of everybody's time. So healthy soil essentially contains microbacteria and essential fungi that are the building blocks of our terrestrial world. Everything we eat comes from the soil, pretty much, aside from fish. But it's no surprise that the microbacteria in our gut matches what's in the soil, like 99%. Here's an example of soil that's been regenerated. Here's an example of increased uniformity on soil, reducing fertilizers, chemicals, water, energy, labor, improving plant health, health and safety. When we talk about parks, when we talk about kids, when we talk about playing surfaces and artificial turf, this is something really important to think of long term, and it can be part of the action plan here. Layering on additional utility incentives that are available to support soil regeneration. Here are a few examples from case studies in Southern California where we saved 30,000 kilowatt hours on 89 acres of turf, which is a 16.7 ton carbon equivalent. Encinitas manages 230 acres of turf, so linear approximation there is 43 tons. If it's okay, I'll cruise through the high level and keep it tight. So if we could go to the next slide. So a case study with Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, our water provider here that we purchase water through, our regional supplier. We saved 22 million gallons of water on 89 acres of turf with soil regeneration. That's 49 tons of carbon equivalents. Apply that to 230 acres of turf of Encinitas. That's 127 tons of carbon equivalent. I'm going to have a summary table here in a second. And then a fertilizer case study that was recognized by the Department of Pesticide Regulations, where soil regeneration led to a 70% reduction in fertilizer. So fertilizer has a massive greenhouse gas emission component to it. It's almost every pound of fertilizer that you use has almost 10 pounds of carbon affiliated with it. So if you apply this 2-acre study that was recognized by DPR to Encinitas, and I used a 10%, assume the city of Encinitas uses 10% the fertilizer that a professional sports field uses on our grass. Figure that's fair. It would be over 100,000 pounds saved, or 483 tons of carbon equivalent. It's pretty substantial. So here's a quick summary of 3 line items of what soil regeneration can do for our climate action plan. Fertilizer, energy, and water of over 653 tons of carbon equivalency.
I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to let you go much longer. I mean, beyond the 3 minutes. Can you maybe just skip to the last couple slides and we can try to set up a longer presentation? Yeah.
Yeah. So, Crystal, can we go to number 11 and we'll hit this really quick. So here's what soil regeneration looks like on the surface. So we're using less inputs, safer, denser playing surface. If we go 2 more, close up. Award from Department of Pesticide Regulation. Next slide. Last year, some very high profile soil regeneration awards. There's 4 of them there. And then some highlights on some economics and return on investment. But biggest takeaway of this is would really like to see a line item for soil regeneration, because it is a substantial greenhouse gas. You know, we can cycle a lot of carbon, reduce a lot of carbon emissions and greenhouse gas emissions with our 230 acres of land we manage. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. And I'm guessing you submitted this as a comment to the update, the CAP update during the public comment period.
Yeah, it was like number 4 or something on the action item. We've met a few times.
Great.
Just with a bunch of folks with the city, and everyone encouraged me to come here. So thank you for your time. Would be happy to dive into where these numbers come from in detail at another time.
Thanks.
Yeah, and just to reiterate Katie's point, so if you wanted to provide this presentation via the climate action at encinitasca.gov email and as a comment for the CAP update, I think that would further just, formally submit your information as a comment, which would be good for if you wanted. But yeah. Okay, and so that wraps up the speakers and my update. So it's open discussion and decision if you'd like.
Okay, I think we have 2 changes that we talked about. Was adding Mark to the Bee City subcommittee, and then
Native
Plant
Plants
subcommittee.
Do you need a withdrawal from one, or is that just from coming off of the?
Oh, and then you want to withdraw from the environmental awards one. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so we have those 3. Any other changes? Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the work plan with those 3 changes. Should I say them again, or?
I think we got it.
Okay, great. And any seconds?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. And
Sorry. And then moving on to the calendar?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll just review the calendar. So we're here in April. The awards will be announced at a council meeting on April 23rd, the environmental awards. And
Excuse me, do the environmental commissioners need to say anything or do anything at that meeting?
yeah, if you course, if you want to attend and be a part of the ceremony, and the mayor might ask if you want to say a few words, and then there's a photo op, of course. So yeah, I would welcome the whole commission if you'd like to attend, or just the subcommittee. It's completely up to you, but there's definitely a great opportunity to interact with the council and recognize the awardees.
I have a quick update on that. I was told that Senator Blake Spear's office will be here too with certificates for the winners.
Wow.
And then any other questions? Okay, so the Arbor Day was also in April. The subcommittee to initiate the work plan update, that'll be next year, next April. And then in May, you won't adopt the work plan. That'll be the following year. But there is Cyclovia, which is on May 18th. And then in June, you can look forward to EcoFest on June 1st. And I'll stop it there. We don't need to go through the entire year. Any questions or comments on the calendar? Okay.
Thank you, Crystal. Okay, and looks like we don't have any commissioner-initiated action agenda items. How about any updates on items of interest?
I had one. May 3rd is the Unite for Climate March downtown. So promote and come and make a sign and come march. There'll be a lot of speakers. It's usually pretty fun. Downtown San Diego. I think Waterfront Park. But I forget exactly. If you look up Unite for Climate March.
Unite for Climate.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I saw.
I've got one. So Saturday is our monthly street steward cleanup. We're going to meet at the old local scoop, which is Shine Market now.
Yes.
Yeah. So I know I'd sent out the email. I think I put most people on that distribution list. I don't know if you've all accepted, but yeah, starting to gather more emails and get some momentum. But Saturday,
8:30.
Yep.
It'll take about an hour. Be done by 10. Gonna have some coffee and
Some
donuts.
Yeah, I know. Can't wait.
So I have a couple other things. There's a Zero Waste Festival. Remember, it was bumped. I forget, it was weather at Ocean Knoll, Friday the 18th from 4 to 6 p.m. See what the young people are doing. Then there's a Eco Literacy Showcase, Tuesday, May 6th. That's at the Farm Lab, and I don't have the time for that. And then there's a second Street Steward event. Senator Blake Spear with I Love a Clean San Diego is the captain for a cleanup site for the big creek to bay that's going on all over the county. And it's going to be at the community park, and that is from 9 to noon, and we'll be there in support with street stewards.
What day was that?
The 26th, thank you, I didn't put that out.
April?
Saturday, yes, April 26th.
I'm sorry, when's the Zero Waste Festival at Ocean Knoll?
Friday, April 18th. And that's all I have.
I just wanted to show you the Carlsbad flyer that was sent out. Thank you. And I just want to encourage Encinitas to do something similar. It really doesn't require much extra work for Encinitas because we're already doing a lot of things for Earth Month. So basically, it's just highlighting environmental actions during Earth Month, and which could include Arbor Day, and it could include the CAP, the CAP review, and we already have an e-waste, and it could include everything that Mark was already talking about.
If this is just a flyer with, like monthly flyer. Cool.
Yeah, just to highlight Earth Month.
Okay.
And you could also put, the new ordinance, and if you want to turn it over as well, because it has a compost and mulch giveaway, which we already did at Arbor Day. We are also having an e-waste collection event and a shredding event and a donate, same thing. So, and that has the creek to bay cleanup as well, but it doesn't have a location. So anyways, I just thought it was a great thing to see, and I think, Encinitas, I think people in Encinitas really, are very aware of sustainability stuff, and I think they would like to participate in that kind of things.
I had one more. Surfire has its monthly cleanup at Moonlight on Saturday the 19th from 9 to 11. I think it is in conjunction with the Botanical Garden and Restoration in Cottonwood Creek. But you have to sign up separately.
Yeah, and it's limited too. So if you don't sign, I think there's like 20 spots because Joe can only bring so many plants, I think. Yeah.
Any other updates? Okay. Any future commissioner-initiated agenda items?
Well, we're working on one for the environmental policy. So before this meeting, I took some of the comments and put it in that format. But then the question is, do we need a couple slides to complement that as well, like our presentation?
Yeah, you can if you want. I think that would enhance your presentation if you had slides.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And for the May 8th meeting, I think you said the deadline is April 28th.
I'd have to look at a calendar, but we can talk offline. I did see your email. I didn't have a chance to look at it, but you've submitted the draft plenty early, so we should have plenty of time to get that finalized and be a part of the agenda for next month.
Yeah. Is this something that requires an agenda report?
Yeah, because it's so let's see. So actually, you've already brought it up to the commission that you wanted to, the environmentally preferable purchasing policy, you've already brought it up under future commissioner initiated items, right? I believe you have. Because under future commissioner initiated items, you're just discussing kind of the general idea of moving it forward more formally to item 9 at a future meeting. So
yes.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
Yeah. So
new to this, so that's why I'm
that's okay. I'm
here.
Happy to help walk through. It's confusing. So what you're preparing would be an item under item 9, commissioner initiated action items. And so what you would be looking to do is recommend that council direct staff to amend the policy.
Yes.
That you're kind of that far along. So I'll help you refine your report, make sure it has enough information for your to justify your recommendation to this commission to vote and make the recommendation to council that they direct staff to work on the policy. So so yeah, that's all for item 9 for next month.
I just recall you guys made slides for the
and
plastic waste thing, so something similar to that. Yep. I guess. Okay.
Sounds good. Great.
Anything else? Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. We can adjourn.
The engineering department brings forward. Some of our key initiatives are improving the infrastructure throughout the city. That's roads, bridges, sidewalks, things like that, and improving mobility. The city of Encinitas is a really progressive city. We were